Welcome, friends, to Crazy Women Country, where women's voices matter. We bring you the latest and greatest female voices in the industry, from artists and songwriters to producers and managers and all women in between. Welcome to Crazy Women Country. I'm Donna.
I'm Paula. And today we have Emily Zuzik on the show. Hi. So, tell us more about you. Obviously, we know you're a singer-songwriter. You brought out the new album, Torch and Trouble. What else have you been doing in this crazy times that 2020 has been?
Yeah, well, it was supposed to come out a little earlier in the year, like in May, but when things really shut down and it didn't look like they were going to turn around quite so quickly, I just decided to arbitrarily pick a time at the end of the summer and decide to do it then, because I was releasing it solely on my own label. And then I paired up with some friends who have an imprint in LA, and we kind of dual released it, but that came together later in the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the biggest thing. I mean, there's all that like precursor to an album, 2 singles, 2 music videos for those, another music video right before the album came out. And then I have this next one, which is having a world premiere on Diddy TV's show, The Curve, on October 7th. And that might be it for music videos. I have one lyric video that might see the light of day, but that's just from this record. So it's been kind of a weird year, obviously. But in a weird way, it's also made it perhaps more accessible as when you're working as an indie, because there's, I think, a lot of bigger label acts just sat on projects for a while. So there was less coming in to editors and playlisters and just different opportunities for artists to draw attention to their work that weren't in the way. So you could kind of cut through the noise a little bit better.
Yeah, which is obviously makes it easier for people to hear you and obviously learn who you are, type thing. But yeah,
try.
yeah, it's not an easy world, is it? But I have to ask, how did you go from being in a band, which I have to say has the craziest name, Sex Fresh, to being a solo artist?
Oh, well, first of all, Sex Fresh was like 1999, 2000 when it came together. So like many moons ago. And even when that was happening, I was still performing as an independent artist, like with my own band. So there were lots of things going on. And I was singing with a funk cover band that was like tied a lot to Burning Man stuff. So I've always had like 3 or 4 things going at the same time. You know, I don't even know how that band got its name. It just sort of came together and we were just like, whatever, anything with the word sex and it gets attention, let's just keep it. And we put out a couple records, and they were probably more in line with what I'm doing now on Torch and Trouble than a lot of the stuff in between, because in the years since, there's been like pop rock, there's a lot of down tempo electro. I did a tune with Moby. I worked with other DJs. So there's a lot of stuff, and I still do it while I'm doing my own thing. Yeah. But I just decided I wanted to make a very specific Americana / country record that I hadn't done to this point, and really commit to that. And some people go and they're like, this is a very eclectic record. I'm like, oh, honey, you have not even seen the old ones yet. You know, like, this is very focused for me. So I think it's very much in that world. But I always put it this way. When I was playing in London a lot, I used to work with an Italian guitarist. And I said, I don't really know, or something came up about like, what kind of music do you play? And I was like, I hate that question, because I've always liked artists who do a lot of different things. And he said, Emily, you play American music. And I thought about it. I was like, well, what do you mean exactly? He's like, there's some blues, there's some jazz, there's some roots, there's some country. That's a very American thing. And I was like, oh, well, you would be better to say that than I would. But it made sense to me. And so I play American music.
I love that. I must admit, you noticed the difference between Torch and Trouble to some of your older music, which definitely has that more of a rock feel, is maybe a bit darker at places. Do you know what I mean? You really have that different feel between some of the older stuff and the newer stuff.
Well, I think who you choose to work with says a lot about it too. And when I met and started writing with and then decided to work with Ted, it was very specific to what I could see him both doing in his own music, what he brought to the acts he toured with, like Shooter Jennings, and what he brought to like Tanya Tucker record, and just how he produces other acts. That was the thing I wanted to bring that I couldn't necessarily do myself.
Yeah.
And I think when you choose a producer, it definitely paints the picture differently. Because I've co-written and been produced by bass players, and the songs are like totally different than if you go a guitarist or whatnot. And that's funny, I say this because I'm thinking of one specific bass player, and then I realized Ted is also a bass player. So like, I'm kind of contradicting myself. But, you know, who you bring on really helps to fill in the dots. Yeah. You write the songs, but the songs can go a lot of different ways depending on who you have in the band and who you have at the helm as a producer and who mixes it and who masters it. And those are all things that I think a lot more about now than when I did 20 odd years ago.
I must admit, you don't think of that being a fan. All you think of is the album and how it's come out and how the artist has changed. You don't realize that it's the whole team behind it that brings in the change and, you know.
Oh, sure. I mean, down to like how the styling is, you know, which I think is silly because I've been a collector of clothing and costume, you know, for decades. Like when I was growing up, I'd hit Salvation Army and charity shops and, you know, and I'd either like repurpose it or just have a collection of oddball stuff. And so, you know, the idea that people put so much attention to those details is funny to me because I'm like, oh, I've been doing this like my whole life. And it just means I like lots of different things. Some people might say like, well, there's no there. And I'm like, well, there is here. This is who I am. And especially this record feels like the most honest and less, and I'm not saying production less layered, but there's not as much, I don't know, coloring to kind of keep things less upfront. This is a very truthful record. And that's taken a long time to get to too. So.
You have to be in the right place to be able to bring out an album that can be so raw. Do you know what I mean? So have, you know, the artist needs to be in the right place. The songs need to be the right songs. You know, there's a lot of things that come together to make sure that, you know, you're there and it's going to be done that way, sort of thing. So
yeah. Exactly.
Perfect. Sorry, Donna, we're cutting you out here. Go for it.
That's okay, Paula. It's fine.
We'll take over.
I just want to say I loved listening to this record. It was amazing to me. I loved how one song brought me to like a Leslie Gore production, like one of her bigger productions, to Wild Mustangs, which actually, it was funny when you said about the Tanya Tucker, because I was like, oh, that reminds me of something like Tanya Tucker would probably do. And, you know, just that whole merging it together.
Well, thank you. That's cool. I like when people have very personal reactions to songs that clearly, you know, I wasn't writing them for anyone in particular. I mean, some of them are very personal stories, but others are not. Wild Mustangs being one of them. That's definitely a story song rooted in like folk tale songwriters, you know, vibe, balladeers. And so it's cool to get feedback like that from listeners. Like, I really dug that song. That's awesome. You know, it's like, how great is that to be able to put something out in the world and have people really like bring it into their heart, you know?
It must be amazing.
Absolutely love that song. That Wild Mustangs Across the Plains was just like, I think that's probably my favorite right now. Of course, I am the type that tomorrow I might be something else, but that just really struck with me. The writing
that's
and everything.
Cool.
So,
well, thank you. You are not in the minority there. There are definitely some people who are like, that's my favorite one on the record. And it's fun for me because it's the first time I kind of allowed myself to both write a song that isn't personal and get that epic about it, but also to just like throw in the kitchen sink on it, you know, like this is like big, torchy, cabaret, like Judy Garland ripping the pearls off her neck. So, you know. I mean, why not? I love that kind of camp and drama, and, you know, why not bring it to like an epic, you know, sweeping tale about something that actually has meaning, you know?
I love it. You can just imagine. I'm free. Okay. So, can you tell us who is one of your main inspirations or Sheroes?
Sheryl. Well, I think, especially with this album, you're looking at the two biggest ones. There's a modern one and an older one. The older one is obviously Patsy Cline, which is in that big sweeping, you know, the pain soars like, ah! You know, that sort of thing, you know, where you can almost like heave up with the tears when you listen to it. And the more modern one would be someone like Sheryl Crow, which has those elements of Americana rock and, you know, is a little, you know, more down the middle center songwriter rock thing. You know, I'm not squarely in just the country camp, obviously. And I like it that way. You know, it's like, I don't know, that's just how I write, you know, a lot of times as far as like as far as heroes are concerned, you know, some of my other heroes are people like the Beatles, are David Bowie, are Elvis Presley, Merle Haggard, you know, these types of characters who all have a sort of a rock center, but a lot of them are also sort of like big dramatic characters that tell wild tales, you know. I like that. I like artists that like switch it up over time, and I think all of those people tend to do that.
Perfect. Amazing.
If you could talk to anyone, who would it be?
I used to have this answer. I don't know that I do anymore, because some of the heroes of my youth, with age on my behalf, I don't see them as heroes anymore. I see them as people who are imperfect and have flaws. And so there's less of a glow about them. I don't know, let me think. You know, someone who might be fun to talk to would be either like Loretta Lynn or Wanda Jackson, like two women who've seen such an array of change over the life of their career. And both of them being like really ballsy out there, and even at times when women weren't as bold with their messaging. You know, I've never seen Loretta. I saw a show that Wanda Jackson played. Oh God, it's probably like over 10 years ago now, and she blew the club away, you know? So that's something you aspire to as a woman artist, is to have that kind of impact late, like you just keep going. You're like an Energizer bunny, like not giving up.
They have some stamina, these women, I swear.
Seriously.
Year on year, they're still touring, and it's like, how are you still doing that? How are you still doing that? But you know. I
know. And I can't speak to Wanda Jackson's story, but I mean, Loretta Lynn was raising kids too, you know, in a fairly traditional family setup where, like, you know, she was working, but at the same time, she was kind of expected to do blah, blah, and blah as woman roles, you know? So it's like, how do you even pull that off, you know? It's like, I have one and she's exhausting.
It sounds tiring.
So if you could thank someone for their support throughout your career, or maybe a couple people, who would it be?
People who've supported me. Well, I have some friends who've been like lifers to my music. One of my friends who I've known since like first year in college, this guy named Isaac Castillo, and he's not in music at all. He's worked in nonprofits, and he used to teach debate and just random stuff. He's in like DC, like Washington, DC, and doing work with at-risk youth. And he's always just been a big supporter and friend, and that's cool, you know, to have friendships that are that long, you know. I think another person who's been there the entire time, I call her my hippie mom. She's not my mom, but she is my dad and her husband kind of came out of law school at the same time, and they were intro lawyers at a firm where I grew up outside of Pittsburgh at the same time. And the two families had kids sort of like at around the same time. And their house was always one that was filled with musical instruments and sort of a creative energy. Like there was no like, you can't do this. I mean, there were rules, but it had a freedom that mine didn't really have. Yeah. And that allowed someone like me, who was sort of a creative type from a very early age, to feel at home and feel free to grow and try things that maybe I wouldn't feel as safe doing if I just had my core family around. So Aunt Mary Campbell. I'm trying to think if there's any, I mean, I couldn't do what I'm doing now with having my daughter without my husband. He's not a musician either. It's like a theme here. Like all the musicians, they're not among this. But no, you know, there's a level of support and trust and encouragement that I get in our relationship or from our relationship that's really important. It gives me strength to maybe not close doors, which initially I would have done just because I thought that's sort of what you had to do, you know. So those are, how about that? I'll go with those.
Perfect. That's perfect. Great answer. Fantastic. So I have to ask you, I saw on your website about the adverts you were in. They were fantastic.
Which ones? The crazy like Jose Cuervo ad? And...
That was right. When I first saw it, I was like, is this an advert or is it a film or a TV series? And of course,
oh my God. Well, as someone who worked on that and thinking that I was just going to be like colorful background in this ensemble cast, which took on a little bit more, you know, when they did the final edit, there was just like, they pulled some frames that ended up in some magazines and I was in them. I was like, oh, they didn't use the lead there. They used me and Bodie, like the crazy two in the background. That was a really fun project because it had a crazy budget and was like being on a major feature film. We were up on this like film ranch north of Los Angeles, and it was so hot. It was like October, we were having like 90 to 100 degree days, and we're just in this dusty environment. There's no AC. And, you know, I'm wearing a ton of makeup. Like back then my hair was redder. And, but you know, they're like taking on it, you know, extreme, like grizzled lady in a bar vibe. And, yeah, but it was really fun. And there were some great people on the cast and we all just got along. So it was no stress. And so that was a good thing to be part of. But yeah, I've done a couple of commercials while I've lived in LA. I didn't really do much commercial work before I lived in LA because I've always had side hustles. But one of the industries I had a bigger side hustle in New York just doesn't really exist in LA. So I just dialed back into doing extra and film and TV commercial stuff. And just some of the projects have been really fun, you know, when you're not in it to win it. Like I'm not in it to be an actor. No. You know, I can just go in and have a good time and get a paycheck. And that's really fun. And, you know, my relatives back in Southwestern PA are like, oh, we saw you on TV. You know, it's like, well, great, you know. Did you buy my album yet? No.
We saw you on TV, I love that, yeah. It was like the canned water one as well. I thought that was very funny.
Oh yeah, that was fun because I've always been, like I've never done physical comedy. My sister's actually, she's done more theater than I have, and she's a total screwball comedy type actor. So I always enjoy watching her do plays because she can do pratfalls and stuff like that. And it's never been my thing, you know. I usually get cast as like young mom or musician, you know, but that one was really fun because I get to like spit out coffee beans and like you run into a wall. You know?
It was a trip. It was definitely very funny. And the poor guy in the orange juice.
Yeah. Turns out he's like a metal drummer, which was really fun to like randomly meet an actor on stage and we get talking about like heavy metal bands in the 80s and stuff. But that's what I mean. That's what's so kooky about those worlds. Is like usually people who work as actors have done various other jobs, and not all of them are, you know, creative. But you usually meet people who are like photographers or musicians or just different things. And so you get to talking because there's a lot of sitting around when you do that kind of work. And you know, it was fun. But yeah, he's a rock drummer.
So making an advert, is that the same? Do you have the same sort of vibe as making a video? Like a music video, or is it a very different?
Well, you know, you're jumping into someone else's story when you're doing, you know, that sort of work. And so you just have to say like, okay, well, what do you see this being like, and how can I help you to achieve the goal you're trying to get? Yeah. And so there's a lot of that. Whereas with all the videos I've been part of, at least with this record, like I've been very involved. I didn't produce the video for Trouble, but and this is typical me. I was up the night before storyboarding it. And because I hadn't talked much to the producer, it was just a friend of this photographer friend of mine. And I was like, you know, I have this vague idea, but you know, we can talk about it when you come over and then we'll just start shooting. It was real loosey-goosey. So then I'm up at like 5:30, 6 in the morning. I'm drawing out storyboards and, you know, I was like, I want to get this shot. I want to get this shot. And like, we can play with these kind of shots. And he was like, okay. So, but the other ones, I either shot the whole thing or shot half of them and edited them. So I was really hands-on. And so to me, it was sort of like how I kind of knew what I wanted to achieve. And when you're shooting it yourself, you have the ability to like look back and say like, did you get that facial expression or that angle that you wanted? And if you didn't, if you're doing it at a location that you have more control over, then just reshoot, you know? I think if I were working with more teams and just kind of going with their visions, it would be a little bit more like doing a commercial. Where I'd be like, okay, this is the vague idea we've talked about. What do you, as the cinematographer, want? Like, is it this? Is it this? You know, is it this? You know, and just like, tell me what you need me to do, and I'll try to get that so we can make the best thing possible. So.
That's perfect. That's amazing, and be able to obviously record it yourself.
Let me ask this as another PA girl here.
Whereabouts? Oh wait, are you talking about PA production assistant or PA Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania.
Whereabouts?
Eastern, near Allentown.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm like an hour from Pittsburgh. Totally different states. We know. It was like, how close are you to Philly? I'm like 8 hours, you know? I'm closer to West Virginia, you know? So.
Yeah.
Oh, were you going to ask? You said as a fellow PA girl.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how long ago did you leave the state?
Well, I left for college, and then I came back for 2 summers. After freshman, after sophomore year. And then pretty much I was gone. So, you know, without totally ageifying myself, but, you know, I've been gone 25 years, something like that. And, you know, I went to school upstate New York and I moved to New York for like 1.5 years. And then I moved to San Francisco for 5 years. And then I spent like 3 months on the road in the Southwest and outside of Texas and outside of Austin in Texas. And then I moved to New York again for 10 years. And I've been in LA now for 9, so, which is crazy to me because it still feels so new. And I think it's just because like I got here and basically found out I was pregnant. So like my entire LA experience for the most part is preparing for a child or raising a child. And that definitely colors your experience. You know, you have to get a social group, which involves that, because your friends who don't have that, you just don't see them as often. They just, you know, it's just what it is. And I got lucky because I ended up making friends with a bunch of women who were all in creative fields and freelance, and we were all freaked out because none of us had friends who had kids. And all of us were like, is this the end of like our careers because we now suddenly have a child? It became very helpful in a way too, because as we were all going through that, it was sort of a common experience, both learning to become a parent, but also learning to figure out what the next chapter looked like for all of our individual lives. And, you know, a lot of these people are like my best friends right now. So it's kind of cool.
It works. That's good. But you need that support, don't you? I mean, obviously, women in music, you've always got that. Obviously, when a woman has a child, do they come back? And it's got to be a really hard decision to make. Even if you have got the support of a husband or a partner, it's still going to be one of the hardest decisions to make. Do you give up and bring up the child, or do you keep your career going? It must be, you know, and obviously...
you know, a lot of what I was doing before I left New York was focusing less on touring and more on sync and commercial music writing, co-writing with people, writing for TV, film, commercial, stuff like that. And so I already had that momentum going in New York. And so when I came out here, I made some friends and did some vocal session work, and I've done some co-writing stuff, but I really just focused on doing studio projects for, you know, that, especially that period where she was really little, my daughter. And, you know, I've been slowly bringing touring back into my life. Then COVID happened. And, you know, things have been on hold. But I am actually scheduled to actually have a live outdoor show, you know, fingers crossed, in November, which, if we don't have another spike, promises to be probably the first time I've played since March. The last time I played was the first week of March. And, you know, I was planning to put out a record in May and do some summer touring. And so instead I ended up pushing an album release to late August and doing live streams, which I've done a lot of live stream festivals. And just for a while I was doing a weekly sort of roundup from my home. I haven't done those as much these days. And I have a couple things coming up live stream that are like songwriter circles or things like that, music festivals that people are putting together, usually to get out the vote. I've done 2 to try and get, you know, voter turnout and to celebrate women's suffrage and things like that. I consider myself to be someone who wants to be involved in politics, but I tend to get involved by doing musical, you know, fundraiser things. You know, I mean, any way you can. It's too important to sit out.
Totally. Okay, perfect. So, quick fire questions.
Okay.
These are fun. They're dead easy, you know. Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. Okay.
Never. They might be absurd reactions, but whatever.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay. So, are you an early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Beach or countryside?
That's tricky. I would probably choose countryside, although I've been spending a lot of time at the beach.
Favorite season?
Fall.
Biggest fear?
I think heights at this point, but you know, I still have this like long-seated dread that someone's going to murder me in a very violent way. But you know, hey, let's just throw this on the couch. You know?
that's definitely a crazy fear, isn't it?
Don't hold back, really. Really.
No, just give it all. Why not? What's your favorite holiday?
Halloween.
Then she was going to get murdered. She was going to get some like psycho.
Totally.
Or something like that. Favorite drink?
The one I've been drinking all summer, which is a little made-up number based on something I've had. It's fresh grapefruit juice, fresh lime, mezcal, topped off with a bit of ginger kombucha, Malden sea salt, and cayenne.
There you go. Did you get that?
Write it down.
I think I want to try that one.
Yeah, it's pretty yummy. It's like very refreshing, and I've been foraging around the neighborhood, so I can just get the limes and the grapefruits from people's trees, and the rest of the stuff I have at the house. So
I love that. I love that. If your limes or anything goes missing, we know who's stolen them.
no, I always make friends with people first and ask them if I can take them. But like, you know, I got this one neighbor, she's this little old lady, she's got like 5 grapefruit trees. And I was like, can I take a couple grapefruit? She's like, take as many as you want. I was like, okay, yes. So every time I walk the dog, I go and grab 2 grapefruit, bring home.
Perfect. I love it.
That's a California conceit right there, I tell you what.
You know, I think that could be a Florida thing too, because we do that. The one neighbor that has, I do the same thing. I'm like, hey, can I steal some of your oranges? And they're like, yeah, help yourself.
Well, I used to live in a house with a huge lemon tree, and I never could use all the lemons. So I would just gather them up and I put them out on the street, say, take whatever you want. Because, I mean, if you don't bring in someone to farm your fruit trees, it's just going to fall and rot and be wasted. And it's perfectly good food. So, you know, give back.
Totally. It's the same here in Spain. We have a lot of olive trees, lemon trees, and you know what to say. You just gather it up. You take it to social gatherings. There you go. Take a handful and get rid of them, because you always have way too many. You're never ever going to use them all. So yeah, that's what that's like.
So if you were a musical, what musical would you be?
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Nice.
I love
If
that.
you were a film genre, what would you be?
Satanic cult flick. Could go hand in hand with sci-fi fantasy. They're like my favorite genres.
I love it.
Oh, if you were a Disney character, who would you be?
Aurora from Sleeping Beauty.
Okay. I was waiting for a villain to come out there.
Oh, like Maleficent?
Yeah, that's what I'm from. Oh, if you were a mythical creature, what creature would you be?
Probably a unicorn. Just based on the fact I used to collect them when I was a kid.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Going with gut reactions. They may not make sense to me now, but they're just like the first thing that pops in my brain.
That's perfect. That's what we want.
That's what they want, yeah, totally.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
Why?
Nice.
Why?
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 Why would you like to fly?
I'm kind of obsessed with this family of hawks that live in our canyon. And when I go up to Central Coast, California, there's like tons of turkey vultures, and you can just sort of like watch a large bird float across the sky for a very long period of time. There's something very soothing about that to me. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's probably an adrenaline rush if you're, if you were actually flying. Mm-hmm. But it's more the slower, meditative, peaceful aspect of watching birds that is appealing to me.
Yeah, they're amazing. Perfect. Okay, and now this is the most important question out of all of them. Okay, I hope you're ready for this one. Okay, who is your favorite CWC host? I love that one.
I know 2 of you. Is this a popularity contest that you guys have put money down, and then after I answer this, like someone takes the pot?
We'll see who wins at the end of the
I can't decide that. You guys are both charming.
See, I love it. Everybody says the same. And as soon as you ask the question, like, how could you ask that question? Easy. We like to torment our people. That's good. That's perfect.
Where in Spain are you right now?
I live in Macasvenda, which is up there. We're in the Costa Blanca, kind of.
Okay.
But the nearest biggest town is Murcia. But
okay.
Most people don't know, because we're not on the coast. We're sort of inland.
Inland.
And the coast is about 10, 15 minutes away. It's not far.
That's not bad.
So
you got it if you want it, and you don't need to have it.
No, and we've got swimming pool at the house, so just use a swimming pool. You haven't got to deal with sand or salt or all the other stuff that comes with the beach.
That's true.
So yeah, it's nice. It's nice at the moment. It's still warm, which is good. I love it. Well, it must be warm in LA.
We're having another heat wave. It's like 96 degrees today. When it gets this hot, I just hide.
Yeah.
I'm from like a place where, you know, it will go to 90 degrees out where I came from. But, you know, for the most part, at this point in the year, things are more like 75 for the high, down in the 50s, like basically Central Coast California temperatures right now. And I don't know, you know, I love it when it's winter here. It's kind of misty, it can be green, it can be kind of cool, and you occasionally get rain. I'd like more rain. We don't have enough rain here, and it's obvious. We have fires and dust and bad air, and if we had more rain, it would solve a lot of these things. I don't know, you know, it's hot today. It'll cool down again after this week. I'm not sure how cool, but you know, hopefully we'll be in the 70s to 80s as a high pretty soon. That's sort of that's my good place.
Nice. Yeah, I must admit, we're normally warmish even up until December. January, February, March can be really cold out here. Extremely cold.
Yeah, we don't get really cold in Southern California. You know, I mean, I lived in New York for long enough. It's like I can, and I lived in upstate New York, which is like, you know, you have maybe 2 months of summer and it's humid and buggy and everything, and then winter in Syracuse, it's like wind chill factor -25, you know, and that's in Fahrenheit. So, you know, it gets very cold.
Very, very cold. Yeah. I must admit, the one time I went to New York and I was so excited because it was for my birthday. My birthday's December, so I was expecting all this amazing snow, and we hit a bloody heat wave. We were in shorts in New York. I'm like, it's supposed to be snowing. It's supposed to be like the movies.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like,
well, it's funny because I feel like December is the month you get Christmas in New York. And then as soon as it's over, it's sort of like gone. You know, there are people and you're just dealing with that weird, slushy, dirty snow water that's by all the sewer grates that you have to walk through to get to the subway, you know?
Just
yeah, well.
Yeah, I must admit, we don't really see snow. You didn't see snow you saw it a little bit in the UK, but not much. And if it did snow, that was it. The whole country come to a complete standstill because nobody could do anything in it. And it's like 2 weeks of the year, and that's it. And it just disappeared. But yeah, I was just so hoping to see some proper snow and, you know, have that whole Christmas.
You probably would have seen more snow if you came in like February or March, because that's when you get these strange, they're called nor'easters. And it's like a big warm front moves up and a cold front meets it up in the Northeast, and it just dumps 4 feet of wet snow on you. And that's when the city shuts down and everybody has these amazing idyllic, we snowshoed across town and hit this like whiskey bar and drank with our friends till 2 a.m, and then we threw snowballs, you know, like everybody becomes like a 10-year-old again. And and it's lovely. It's so nice.
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing, I have to say. Major snowball fights. It's great. It's great. Perfect.
Yay.
You're still on mute, Donna. Do you know that? Does she know she's still on mute?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
I was aware. I was having a little coughing fit. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I just wasn't too sure if you still knew you're on mute. I'm like, oh, does she know? Okay, perfect. It's cool. Well, we have had a blast. It's been amazing meeting you, Emily. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. It's been so good to meet you. So yeah, it's been fun.
All right. Enjoy. Well, take care of yourselves, and we'll be in touch.
Totally. See you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.